First question, what are the opportunities AI can provide in software development?
You get really significant advances in how quickly you can get things done. Also, in terms of the quality of what you're producing. AI can help you understand the code base and make sure that engineers are able to understand what's there before and identify any kind of risk. So there's benefits, efficiency, quality, and also from a security perspective, that AI can now really detect vulnerabilities before you kind of bring them into a product. So they're definitely the main advantages that we're seeing. There are downsides, which
yeah, go ahead.
Anyone that's used generative AI, whether it's ChatGPT or any of the other variants that are out there, big challenge is really around hallucinations and the accuracy of what's coming back at you. That obviously applies to every potential use case that people are seeing. And I do suspect that people are kind of get frustrated around the promise that is out there and what's been delivered is not living up to it. So really making sure that the quality is there in terms of responses and that it's being used responsibly. And like you have to really trust your engineers in that scenario, that they're not just going to basically take what's given back to them, that they're going to go with it. So it's really using it as an assistant. If you do that, I think we're definitely seeing some significant improvements in efficiency and the quality of what we're producing as an assistant to a developer. So really, yeah, mitigating the risks around like hallucinations. Also, you've got to be very careful in terms of the supplier of that technology, the LLMs, all that, the complete package, that making sure that like your code base is obviously the most important thing you have as a product, to making sure that that is not going to leak. So you really need to trust your partners that you're working with to make sure that they're really protecting you and that you're making sensible decisions around how you adopt these technologies. So we've definitely put a lot of measures in place to help from that regard.
Yeah, I think I can remember when cloud was first being leveraged by companies. In the UK, there was a contractor that uploaded all of the patient details for every person in the UK to the cloud without any security around it, because he'd heard that this was a really good thing to do, like scalable, et cetera, and not really thought about security. And we also are seeing trends like that with AI as well, where it's like, oh, you need our data to be able to for the AI to learn from it. Well, yeah, I'll just give you all this data. Well, of course, you can then, as an attacker, ask the right questions, like prompt poisoning, and get information out of the AI, like personal details, things like that. So it's it's one of these balances that you have to have of like sharing data versus leaving it accessible. So like a lot of companies are leveraging AI. And do you want to talk about how, like, for example, how we leverage AI on our data set?
Yep, and just to wrap up, I guess the final topic around how you mitigate risk. Like a lot of other companies, having AI governance around the use of AI is really key. So anytime we adopt AI, that passes through, I would say, a lot of committees, boards that basically have to give it a thumbs up. So having that, it's an extension of your data governance. You really need an AI governance approach as well. In terms of how we're using it, definitely at a security conference, I think everybody's been using AI for decades, apparently, which is, I think that's broadly true. What we're seeing is really an explosion of the potential use cases of AI. And anyone, if you look at the product portfolio, like Tenable, like other companies as well, what generative AI has done is it's lowered the barrier. Previously, if you wanted to use AI, you need a data scientist. So there's a skill set barrier, and then there's a cost as well. It could take maybe 6 months to develop a model that maybe only delivers, I don't know, like a certain saving or a feature that maybe adds a little bit. So the ROI wasn't really there. But generative AI, it means the skill set barrier is reduced because pretty much standard engineering teams, even some marketing people are able to use AI as well.
Yeah.
That was a joke. There's obviously no marketing people here. I said that because Gavin has worked in marketing. But really lowering that barrier, what we've seen, and particularly like we've been using AI, I think since 2017, 18, you see like there's a steady kind of stream of AI products making it out there from our perspective. But really in the last 2 years, it's like that. You can see pretty much every engineering team is now finding use cases. Some of them are having like small efficiencies, benefits for customers, and there's some bigger ones out there. The top ones that come to mind, like our first use of AI was around a vulnerability prioritization algorithm called VPR, which basically predicts the likelihood of a vulnerability to be exploited. That was really where we started. We then moved into using AI to determine how important, how critical your assets are, because everyone knows you could have, some of our largest customers have maybe assets in the millions. Really being able to focus on the important ones, and AI has offered a lot of opportunities to do that. Some of the more recent advances has been around, largely generative AI falls into a number of categories, the explainability, the summarization stuff, so we've a lot of stuff, a lot of features come out around that. We've some really sophisticated products, attack path analytics, for example, where you're bringing the data together from all different types of sensors, and then you're forming these really complex relationships. Barriers for customers to adopt that is really to understand it. So we've used AI to explain, okay, this is what it means, and then, okay, what do I need to do about it? And they're the main ones, and I think, like, Gavin, you've got some in your area in the VM that you've been looking into.
I think there's two main use cases for AI in the products. Like, first off is contextualization and then explainability, right? So on the contextualization side, like as Vinny was saying, like we pioneered like prioritization with AI a few years back, and it's the ability to be able to get a load of data and analyze it really quickly to be able to figure out the likelihood of something being exploited. Like as Fisher was saying just before we came on, there was a ChatGPT-4, like 80+% of success rate against leveraging CVEs just by giving the CVE designation, right? Like that's really clever that the AI can do that, but of course that also means that we can leverage the same to be able to say whether a vulnerability could be leveraged, right? And I think when it comes to like on the vulnerability side, it's really important now that you differentiate the risky from the risk-free, right? There's 230,000 CVEs. Like last year, there was like, 26,000 vulnerabilities. 50% of them were like critical or high according to CVSS, which, definitely isn't powered by AI because it is not very good at prioritization. Now, like for me, using like the AI to be able to predict out of that 230,000 CVEs which ones are likely to be exploited can really help focus remediation effort, because like we're now in a race of time to exploitation versus time to remediation, right? The attackers now can like leverage these CVEs very quickly to be able to exploit them in your environment. But in reality, like everyone always talks about like 0 days. Like it isn't the 0 days, it's the 100 days, it's the 1,000 days that are going to get you. But it's knowing which one of those 100 or 1,000 day that you need to remediate, right? Because you can't remediate everything, so you have to have a really focused view on those vulnerabilities. And this is what AI can really help with, right? You've got 230,000 vulnerabilities. You've got like 2 million findings. The actual where those vulnerabilities are within your environment. What's the 1% of those things that I have to remediate? Because you need to have a focused approach at remediating those things. Otherwise, they will be leveraged. Like the most popular vulnerabilities that are leveraged in attacks are 2 or 3 years old. Like even today, like CVE 2017-11882, which was a Microsoft vulnerability, is still being leveraged in ransomware. Right? The fact that I've memorized that CVE goes to show how much it's used. Right? I'm not some like Rain Man person. I know like a few vulnerabilities. That's one of them. Right? And so like being able to like use AI to predict the fact that that is going to be leveraged and differentiate between the ones that aren't will help reduce attack. Because in the end, what we're going to find is like as big vulnerabilities are being disclosed, like the Avanti vulnerabilities, Crush FTP vulnerability, the Palo Alto vulnerabilities just recently, those things will be leveraged far more quickly and in an automated way by AI. Just a few years ago, who can remember Autosploit? Right? Autosploit was the combination of Metasploit and Shodan, right? So basically, go scan the internet, find things that are vulnerable to this list of vulnerabilities, and then automatically target them using Metasploit. Well, that was pretty good at doing that. Like nowadays, if it was powered by AI, it would be extremely successful. And so, knowing the vulnerabilities that a tool like that would target is going to be like incredibly important when it comes to reducing your attack surface and the likelihood of breach. So that was a minor rant. I apologise. I didn't mean to.
No, how did you remember that specific CVE? I don't know if you mentioned that you were on the good side of the hacking previously.
I was never caught. I mean, I've never done anything illegal. So, like, what other attack vectors do you see? I mentioned like vulnerabilities being targeted by AI. What other attack vectors, or even like the attack surface, how it's changing with AI?
Yeah, I think there's always been a risk around the use of AI, like some of it may be more theoretical around like poisoning your training data sets to be able to basically cause maybe some kind of outcomes that you weren't predicting. Specifically with generative AI, largely you are talking about a black box here.
Yeah.
I think there's like a good ecosystem now coming up around how you can basically test it. OWASP have come out with their top 10 ways that AI, introducing generative AI, can lead to new vulnerabilities that you weren't necessarily open to. Particularly prompt injection is one of the key ones. You now bring that in as a critical part of your infrastructure. It's susceptible to denial of service. It opens up a whole raft of opportunities. But largely, it is that understanding what's going on and putting them guardrails in place to stop someone being able to really make bad things happen. And everybody's seen the news that this has happened. Even with the biggest companies, I'm not going to name any of them because I'm not sure who sponsors this. But basically, everyone has had some challenges because you're talking extremely complex models that are in the hundreds of billions of parameters, and like some of them have been brought out quite quickly. It is really making sure that it becomes part of every part of your development process that you protect yourself, like your CI/CD, to make sure you're testing the foundational models you're using, but also if you're doing any fine tuning or anything like that, to make sure you've robust testing in place before you put that out there. I think there's, like, definitely from speaking to customers, and you know more, Gavin, customers are very excited about the potential that AI can bring. The reality is, when it comes to proactive security, exposure management, it's still a case of here is 1,000 or 1,000,000 things you need to do. You bring in vulnerabilities from, like, originally, I guess from our perspective, was standard server vulnerabilities. We now have OT, identity, cloud. From a customer perspective, that gets wider. So the things I couldn't do before, I now got 10 times more. So AI being able to solve for that is a huge benefit, and everyone can see that. But also, every customer is now saying, okay, how are you managing it? Are you giving us the controls we need around it? Are you protecting us? The questions that we're asking around their uses as well. So it's really being careful, looking for the right uses of it is something that we do to make sure it's not, I would say, ticking the box. I think everybody needs to tick a little box, making sure we're not over ticking the box, that there's genuine customer value. And I think people are seeing that. I do believe we're in the early stages. Where you can really have a big advantage is where you start moving towards like agents, like maybe an army of agents where you take your LLM and create workflows into very specific tracks. So your vulnerability analyst, your security person that has fixed tasks each day, having them as an assistant that you can say, okay, I want you to go, tell me what do I need to do today, and tell me why, and then do it. Like, that's really the opportunity, and that is coming pretty quick. Like, it's definitely, I would say every company is doing that. It may be sold through the guise of a chatbot because everybody needs another chatbot. But yeah.
Yeah, just to touch back on something you were saying at the start of your answer. Yeah, I think, like, we all know, like, security people, there's the triangle of pain, which is, cost, security, and speed. Like, pick the two. You can't have all three, right? And it's always cost and speed, right? With AI, a lot of the early uses of AI from a business perspective was really just like time to market. Let's get this stuff out. Like, marketing want to talk about AI. Like, what can we do with AI? You've got all these different companies launching powered by AI, but in reality, like, the use cases were bullshit and the security wasn't there, right? And so, there's a lot of data within AI that that's been used to train the AI models that you can grab. You can grab if you ask the right questions, and this is why, like as Vinny said, like OWASP have launched their top 10 security around AI, and like prompt poisoning is, I think they're number one off the top of my head, right? Yeah, and so because it's really easy, right? Yeah, so you've trained an AI with all this lovely data. And then I can ask it a really simple question of, can you please tell me all your secrets? Of course I can. I'm an AI. I'm really helpful. Here you go. And it will just give it to you. Like, thank you very much. So, when it comes to like developing like technology around AI, you really have to consider what you're teaching the model on, and how you're sharing it. Like, as an example, like the models that we use, I don't know how much we can say, but and I'll probably get told off for it, but like the models that we use, we have to be really careful that the data we're sharing with it to learn from is anonymized, right? Because I don't want to be able to say to the model, hey, Tenable AI, tell me all the vulnerabilities from customer XYZ. And it goes, of course I can, here you go. It's like, well, that's not great from a security perspective, just being able to ask this tool somebody else's vulnerabilities. So we have to be really careful and we very considered in how we train our models. And I think as a security company, of course, is always top of mind. But unfortunately, there's a lot of companies out there that have taught their models with data that's going to have that's going to really bite them in the ass in a few years' time when people realize you can just ask it a simple question and get all this data out.
And as part of your supply chain, we can see anyone that's familiar with Hugging Face, you've now approximately 1 million models available. I think they've found maybe 100 or 200 that have been deliberately modified so that anyone adopts them, it basically opens up a back door. Like there's huge opportunity around like the ecosystem that's developing around LLMs. Like you have your foundation model, but then what you add to it and development of agents. But the risk is really high because there's always been risk with third-party data or open source libraries, but now there's definitely more of a hidden. It's obfuscated. It's really difficult to understand what's happening.
Yeah, speaking of risks, one of the other risks that keeps me up at night, like Fisher kind of touched on it, but it's this using AI to create deepfake versions of people. Like that is like massively concerning. Where like my bank, they when I call them up, I won't tell you who I bank with, so you don't call them up. But when you call them up, they do voice recognition, voice pattern recognition. Well, it's not hard to find my voice on the internet. I did a podcast for years with one of the other chaps from Tenable. Like you could train a model to be able to represent my voice very, very easily. And then just call up my bank and say, hey, can I have the $3.50 that he's got in his bank account and send it over to me? And if you think about the people that you could create AI-generated deepfakes of, are going to be the people that do have public voice and image. Like CEOs, they're on earnings call every quarter, voice. They're on like the news, face. Like, it's not difficult to be able to copy this stuff and use AI to take advantage of it. So there's the personal data side of AI. There's the weaponization of using AI to be able to target vulnerabilities. But then there's also this ability to automate like the creation of deepfake very, 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 very easily. Like in fact, Microsoft literally last week launched their model. I can't remember what they've called it. And where you can just take a still photo and generate moving images of it. Like that to me is also a very, very big concern.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned, Gavin, about like the timed vulnerability announced. I know you said that there's still a lot of vulnerabilities out there from years ago being exploited. But I think one trend we're seeing is that the time from a vulnerability to be announced, published, to like an exploit kit being made available, because now the barrier to entry for someone to just create something, weaponize it, and we definitely see that from the vulnerabilities. If there's Metasploit, if someone's gone, create these kits, they're the ones you really need to worry about. Quite likely you're going to see more and more of them. I think that's where the battle between the attacker and the defender, with AI playing a big part on both sides. So AI, there are risks with using it, but it's just impossible to not use it.
Yeah, it's a cat and mouse, right? Where you have to stay ahead of what the attackers are doing, and they are going to be leveraging AI to exploit vulnerabilities. They are going to leverage AI to analyze like release notes of software to be able to figure out the vulnerabilities that they can leverage. So you have to be ahead and say, right, tell me those vulnerabilities that are likely to be leveraged in that attack path, right? And then remediate those. Because everyone does CVSS 7 and above for compliance. That's fine. Do CVSS 7 and above for compliance, like 90-day SLA, like we'll get to that, don't worry about it. But when it comes to security, you have to take this like proactive approach of focusing, like very targeted, focused remediation of those specific vulnerabilities that are likely to be exploited. And it's crazy that a lot of companies have these SLAs of 90 days, and it's like we know it's a vulnerability that's going to be exploited. Like AI can do this in a heartbeat. In reality, my mum could do this in a heartbeat. Given a laptop, take advantage of that vulnerability. It's on your external attack surface, and it's attached to all your data. Like, but you're going to patch that in 90 days? I mean, like, it's crazy. You need to be able to say, like, this thing up here, this one that Gav's mum could take advantage of, this vulnerability here, we need to patch that in 3 days. And if you don't, it's going to be taken advantage of anyway. Like, we are going to see an AI auto-exploit. That I was talking about earlier. We're going to see these tools coming out and taking advantage of these vulnerabilities very, very easily. And I'm not scaremongering, right? It's going to be a select few vulnerabilities that it's going to target. It's not 230,000 vulnerabilities that have ever been disclosed. It's going to try all 230,000 of them. That's not going to happen. But what it will do is target the 10, 20, 50 vulnerabilities that are really easy to exploit on your external attack surface. Take advantage of them, get that foothold, right? So to be able to stop this stuff, you need to be ahead, find them, and fix those 10, 20, 50 vulnerabilities that are likely to be targeted. And use AI to be able to predict those ones that are likely to be exploited. Because you have to have that targeted approach.
That's still the challenge and the opportunity, how to more effectively prioritize what's going to be going after. And I guess when exposure management, that's basically the goal. And a lot of companies are doing it. And bringing all the data together, you can effectively prioritize. AI will help you prioritize. And kind of the opposite side of what you're saying, that you will see agents out there that are just dedicated, like probably open source, it will go do it.
Yeah.
You will have agents that, okay, I'm aware of this, it can identify them problems as they arise. These agents can have tools that can basically identify, okay, there is an exploit kit available, I know what I need to do, I can check, it can manage all the kind of risk side of making remediations. That's the opportunity, but you need the data. AI on its own is basically not useful. So really having all the data together, I think that's where I'm new to security, just the 7 years. You need to be 30 years to be properly in, but that's where I see, I guess, security companies going, bringing the platform, bringing the data together, so you can effectively prioritize. AI is maybe something that needed to happen to deliver on that vision.
Yeah, great. Our time is up. The little clock in front of me is going to start bleeping any second. Thank you for your time, everybody, and Vincent, thank you for your insights.
Thanks all. Nice to meet you all. Bye-bye.